Hi guys, welcome or welcome back to Advent. You're with me, Jess McGovern, international multi-award winning portrait photographer of mostly dogs, and it's still a drivel to have to say that over and over again, but here we are. Welcome. As you already know, it is Advent, so really quickly, Advent, we're doing a video every single day, a resource for our members inside the MTOG Vault. I'll talk about the membership another time. It's not something I'm particularly great at talking about myself, but I freaking love it. So I'll put links to what it's all about down below, and I'll probably link to it above because why the heck not? We're here on YouTube and that's all I say. But today we're going to be talking about business. So we don't talk about that much in the way of business stuff on YouTube, and we never really have, whereas it's something that we talk about every single month, multiple times inside the MTOG Vault. So I'm going to be talking about a topic today that I think is really important, hence why we've prioritized this video to go out on YouTube, because it seems like people aren't understanding it, or maybe they are and they don't care. I don't know, but a big issue with a lot of portrait photography businesses, especially dog photography businesses, is that people not be making the dollar. You guys, you've got bills to pay, mortgages to do, inflation is a thing, and at the same time, most of you are working for considerably less than minimum wage. And that is a problem. That is a problem not just for you as an individual because you don't have disposable income to spend on fun things or to reinvest in new camera equipment or to further your business. It's not just an issue for you, it's also an issue for the wider industry. And this topic is absolutely freaking ginormous, but I want to get to a really simple element of it that I think hopefully will help quite a lot of pet photography business owners. And then I'm also going to just hopefully help you to work out how you can balance the books, because we're going to talk today about time is money. Time is money, and money isn't a dirty word. Profit's not a dirty word. Running a business is all about making sure it's financially viable to be sustainable long term. And by sustainable, we mean financially sustainable, not environmentally sustainable. Obviously, would hope that it would be both, but you're not going to be able to be environmentally sustainable as a business if the business doesn't exist. So the members are very used to me giving out very tough love and serious bits and pieces about business, and that's kind of going to be no exception today. So I'm going to illustrate the point, but everybody knows Jess is rubbish at math, unless I've got a calculator, and then it's okay, but usually I'll read the numbers out wrong. It is something that I hopefully am qualified to talk to you about, and depending on your average sale, you're either going to be beyond where I'm working at or behind where I'm working at. And I don't think that there's an issue with anyone at any level implementing the things we're talking about today. So whether you're brand new or you've been in business for 10 years and you still can't pay the mortgage, or you still can't afford to buy a new car, or you still can't this, that, or the other, or you're struggling to make ends meet and you're happy to take a second job right now, I'm hoping this is going to be helpful. So that was like a really long intro. Oh, I'm so bad at these. Okay, so first crux of the matter is that time is an investment. So you might think buying a new camera is an investment in your business. It certainly is, 100%. You might think that booking onto a photography education workshop or a retreat is an investment in your business. It absolutely is. Time is an investment, just like spending the dollar, okay? The issue that I think people have is that because this is art for us and we just love doing it, we get lost in the whole time part of it. And I think the longer you're in business, the more you realize that, time literally is money, and it is. So it's a finite resource. It has a limit to it. There are only 24 hours in a day, and for at least 6 of them, you should be asleep. Your revenue dictates how much your time is worth, because you're going to be spending a certain amount of hours doing the doing on your photography business, okay? That should make sense. For every client that you have, you're spending time on them, okay? Or someone else's that you pay, irrelevant, but there is time spent on it. I have heard from many different photographers that they are spending upwards of 24 plus hours per client on retouching alone, like on retouching. And that terrifies me, because unless you guys are charging adequately for that time that you're putting in there, your time is worth very little. and actually you're being paid considerably less than minimum wage, okay? That's not even including the time of communication with the client, the time of organizing the session, the prep work, driving to the session, doing the photo session, driving back, reorganizing, picking, culling your images, doing your retouching, doing a sales session, handling any orders that come in after the fact. You're not including that part, and you're not including running the freaking business, doing your bookkeeping, doing your taxes, doing all of the fun things that aren't fun at all of the things that have to happen to keep the business running. What about time you're spending on social media? I mean, how long have you spent on Instagram this week? Just, all of that involves an investment of your time. And depending on how much you're getting paid back per client, your time's worth probably not that much right now if you're watching this video. However, I could be wrong. So I got some maths together and I'm going to basically just go through it really quickly because I wrote it down so that it would be right. If one client takes 12 hours of your time and returns a profit of 100, what currency should we use for today? Euro. 100 euros. Your time is worth €8.33. Okay? Is it cents? If that client takes 12 hours of your time and returns a profit of 800 euros, then your time is worth 80 euros per hour for just the session work. So it's really, really common, like I said, to be spending 24 to 36 hours collectively on individual clients. And so when the revenue per client is less than 400 euros, and we're imagining that some of that is going to be paid, in taxes, you're going to have some business expenses to pay off that month, it's probably going to be closer to maybe 250 euros on a good day. And we're looking at digital files here as your output, not a product that actually costs cash dollar. 36 hours at that gives your time a value of €6.94. And I can't work out the currency conversion but that's considerably less, like half, I think, minimum wage in the UK, which is just not good, you guys. We have such potential here. There are things that you can do to make this work, and you don't have to do all of them. You can pick and choose with little bits and pieces of each one. But I've basically done a gigantic list of all of the things that you could think of to balance the books in terms of this time investment versus money. But there's no point doing that. There's no point doing the balancing if you don't know how long you're spending per client, because I could think I'm spending 6 hours per client, but actually if I tracked the time literally per client, it could be closer to 12, probably quite easily, which is double, right? So you can download little apps. You can download something called Toggle, which I've used in the years gone by, and you can go ahead and start tracking your time for a couple of clients. I'd like 5, and then for you to do an average so that you can work out exactly what that client returned to you financially, but also what you spent on each client as well. So it could be that a client has cost you twice as many hours as any other client, but they've brought in 3 times as much revenue. And therefore, the books may balance if you work out your costs, and I wouldn't be concerned about that anomaly. This is getting long. We'll just go into the things you can do to fix the situation. So the first thing that you can do to reduce your time per client, because that's one side of the coin, we'll go on to the other side in a second, but you can reduce your time per client by implementing a studio management system like Lightblue, for example. I'll drop a link to them in the description below. You could use Lightblue, which will help you to automate or even just semi-automate your customer journey. So you're not having to remember to email the client. You're not having to remember to send a reminder for the client. It will automate a lot of the steps from templates that you can build within the program, and it just cut your administration time per client down quite considerably. And so that's number 1, okay? Number 2 would be to reduce the shoot duration. So if you're usually doing 2-hour shoots, can you get that shoot done in 60 minutes? Is there any way that you can reduce the amount of time that you're spending on location or in the studio without sacrificing the quality of the experience for the client? Because that's really, really important. You can't do that. You have to walk that fine line. So it could be that you perhaps maybe shoot at closer locations to your home address. It could be that you actually look at using an alternative way of making distant locations work better for you financially, which we will talk about in the second section. So there's lots of different ways that you can do that, but just consider perhaps looking at reducing your shoot duration. Then we look at editing, and the largest time drain for most photographers nowadays is editing. So your retouching time per client can come down in a number of ways. The first way, which is the one everybody ignores, is you just shoot better. If you shoot better, you retouch less. So improving your photography skills, your actual photographic skills in camera at the point of capture, will help you to reduce your retouching time. And it's the one that everyone misses out, but it makes the biggest difference. Trust me, I know. So you can improve your skills so you get better pictures. You can reduce your picking and culling time by utilizing an AI tool, for example, to help you with that pick and cull. You could alternatively reduce your picking and culling time by making a conscious decision to shoot less. So that comes with time and experience, but there are more situations on an average photo shoot for me that I would not take a picture. I choose not to take the photo because I know it's not going to be at the level I want it to be at. So I will wait or manufacture a situation whereby the resulting image is going to be just amazing. And that's my preferred use of time. Reducing retouching time is a giant topic. We can go through things like batch management, batch editing, utilizing AI to edit images. We could go through all sorts of different reasons why, for and against all of those things, but it comes down to being able to implement a structured workflow that you can repeat. So a repeatable workflow. Things like using and setting up your own Lightroom presets, things like learning how to copy and paste Photoshop layers, anything that you can do to simplify the retouching, but also make it mostly scalable. Those things are going to be really, really useful. And then you have your sales side. So if you're doing in-person sales sessions and they usually last 7 hours, we could probably look at refining that process to see if there's any improvements that you can make to shorten that selection time. So in-person sales can be slimmed down, obviously not at a detriment to the eventual sale, but it's something that you could perhaps have a look at. You can also kind of trim down a little bit your ordering time by either looking at different labs that might work better for you for speed, or by having a bit of a process in place of print prep. So I have actions set up that run on my print prep bits and pieces and resizing and stuff like that. So that's something that really does speed up my order preparation time before it goes to the lab. And then when that work comes back, can you speed up the collection process? Whether that's by making it a collection rather than a delivery that you have to do yourself, or by implementing some other constraint or feature that just slims down that delivery. So you've got loads of ways there to reduce the time that you're spending per client. Obviously, it's a giant pot. You're not going to want to do all of the things probably, but you might want to do some of the things. I would consider doing some of those things if you're not doing any of those things. Personally, the alternative side of the coin, instead of reducing the time spent per client, is to maximize the revenue per client. If you can maximize specifically the profit per client, then you're going to be in a much better place, because at the end of the day, you could still spend the same amount of time per client, but instead of getting that £100 profit, you're going to get that £800 profit, and your time per hour, your hourly rate, as it were, is going to go from like £8 or whatever it was to £80, and that's quite a big difference. So how can you maximize revenue per client without becoming an asshole salesperson like you get in the car showrooms? No offense to car salespeople right now, but we've all been there. The way that I construct my sessions and my pricing and everything else means that I know it's going to be at least worth my time to be investing my own energy in doing that portrait session for a client. Otherwise, I just wouldn't do it. Like, I'd get a job that's going to be less stressful than running a photography business. How can you increase your profit per client? Number one, raise your freaking prices. So raising your prices is the easiest way of maximizing your revenue and profit per client. You could just lift your prices and that would effectively increase your profit as a flat line. However, a lot of people are a bit worried about doing that. We've talked about this already in Advent. So the members already have a how to raise your prices and when to do it and whatnot resource. But raising your prices is number one. You don't have to do that though. Don't worry, I've got loads of other alternatives. Number two is to rework your pricing for larger bundles. So by bundling and packaging options, or by selling collections as a primary focus rather than individual pieces of wall art, that tends to work well. So I've done this myself. I've gone from focusing on individual pieces of wall art to bundling them into beautiful galleries. So it's a wall gallery. And so that gallery will usually be an easy decision for the client to make than ordering those 3 separate pieces or 5 separate pieces off of the price list without it already bundled. So you could look at bundling as an option. You could reduce the cost of your products as well. So if you're buying, for example, little USB things for your digital file sales and stuff, maybe you could find a different way of doing that. If you're selling tiny items like gift prints, 10 by 8s, or single social media size files, we're not going to talk about social web, like let's leave that topic alone. But if you're selling those things, that has the potential of really kind of bringing down your average sale because you're not showing the potential of all of the other wonderful products that could exist. So I would be recommending perhaps reworking your pricing to make sure that you are 100% sustainable. If you don't already, you can implement in-person sales. And I know this is going to be like, wait, what? You want me to spend more freaking time per client? How is that going to help me? It will. I promise you that if you don't do in-person sales, you are leaving some money on the table. Obviously, there's a limit to what we can and can't do IPS with, but I mean, I've talked about IPS before, even on this YouTube channel, and every single person who's implemented IPS after being a diehard gallery person has all said they will never go back. I don't know anybody who's switched back personally. Obviously, they will exist in the world, but 99.999% of photographers who switch from online gallery sales to in-person sales sessions will never go back because the customer experience is just considerably better. So they feel like they're being taken care of. They get exactly what they want. And the bonus is that you tend to have a higher average sale value. It's a win-win-win. Okay, so then you've got two things that relate directly kind of to shooting, which is to increase the variety in your final client gallery. It makes a huge difference over your average sale value. So if you're taking basically the same headshots over and over again in a portrait session, the client's got like 7 headshots to choose from, but they all kind of look the same. So variety when shooting is really important. And then your second one is to just improve the quality of your work. The client, they don't want to leave anything on the table. They're like, we can't not have it all because it's freaking beautiful. So those would be 2 shooting ones. So I wouldn't even put them in editing, but I guess editing counts. And then you have charging for extras. This is a contentious topic. I used to do this. I do not do it anymore within reason. So these would include things like charging for extra mileage to go to distant locations, extended shoot costs, charging for more than 1 dog or more than 2 dogs. It could be for more extensive retouching. So those things are all chargeable extras that you can have clearly labeled and listed out so that the client's aware of them before they come to you in the first place. And then your last major option here is to choose a different target market and offer your services to a different niche, or offer your services to a different market within the niche you're working in, one that has got a higher level of disposable income. Now, there's 2 things that we didn't talk about in terms of reducing time per client, and that is to hire a retoucher to do your retouching, because then you can't lose the time in that if you were considering it, or hire a virtual assistant to deal with the communication side. So you've got hiring as those, but most people who'll be watching this resource probably won't be able to justify the expense of that just yet. But when you can, I urge you to have a look into it because it does make a real difference. I guess a taboo one that we also haven't mentioned about increasing your profit per client is to sell less product and sell more digital files, which is never going to be me. Like, it's just not. I love wall art and I always will. But for the interest of transparency and making sure we tick all of those boxes, if you were to sell more digital files, then you don't have a cost of a product involved there. So technically they're higher profit. And so my logical brain can't miss that out because it is genuinely a good one. But it won't be me. Just like all of the other things that we've already talked about today, we don't have to do all of them. So even just implementing 1 or 2 makes such a big difference in terms of that investment return of the time versus the money coming back in, and makes it so that you can actually live. Like I said, money is not a dirty word. Profit is not a dirty word. Revenue is not a dirty word. Sales is not a dirty word. These things are literal, vital things that you need to get a handle on and mentally make sense of and feel okay with to be able to run a business and survive from it, instead of crashing and burning and failing out like most businesses do in the first 2 or 3 years. And then you will end up always thinking, but what if? And I don't want you to think, but what if I just raised my prices? Or what if I just shorten my retouching time so I could fit more clients in and make more money? What if? The what ifs are the scariest things, and don't leave yourself with one. So have a look at your time, have a look at your finances, and hopefully this resource at least provided some food for thought. Happy December, and I'll speak to you soon.